Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is day 90 since October 7th. This is Thursday, January 4th. I gave a more extensive briefing this morning, kind of summarizing a lot of things that have happened this past week, including the conversation where several Israeli officials, including Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, have called for Palestinians in Gaza to be relocated, potentially to the Sinai. The United States State Department, of course, well, I shouldn't say of course, but they responded with a statement that was quite ardent against the possible displacement of Palestinians. We know that King Abdullah of Jordan flew to Cairo and met with King Abdullah of Jordan flew to Cairo to meet with President Sisi. We suspect to talk about that as well. Israeli government officials, other officials are saying they don't support that plan, but that conversation has continued. A few other updates. In addition to the targeted explosion in Beirut that killed Salah al-Aruri, the world has been paying close attention to, will Hezbollah issue a counterattack? Of course, Lebanon went before the United Nations, or was going to go to the UN Security Council, to say that their sovereignty had been violated. So attention is being paid to, will that affect regional stability? So today is Thursday. Yesterday, on Wednesday, there was another bomb in Iran, where Iran state media reported that 103 people died and more than 140 were wounded in a blast that was at an event marking the 4th anniversary of the killing of Qasem Soleimani, who was the head of the Revolutionary Guard's elite Quds force. He was killed in a US drone strike in Iraq. Between October 7th and yesterday, January 3rd, the death toll being reported by the Ministry of Health in Gaza was 22,313 Palestinians killed and more than 8,500 children. UNRWA announced, I've been talking about this in the last couple of days, that there were tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of doses of vaccines that were being sent to the Gaza Strip. And UNICEF and the World Health Organization and other partner organizations are said to deliver, they have a plan to deliver 960,000 doses of key vaccines to Gaza, which includes vaccines against diseases like measles, pneumonia, and polio. So that currently, my understanding is the distribution of that rapid response plan has begun, but there is a plan in place for the distribution of those vaccines. The death toll has not been updated in terms of Israeli deaths, although we know that soldiers continue to be killed. We do also know that there remain to be about 128 hostages held in Gaza. We've been hearing of a campaign that is increasing momentum in Israel. It's called All for All, and it's a campaign calling for the release of all of the hostages in Israel, for all of the prisoners, Palestinian prisoners. It's a call for the release of all Israeli hostages, Israeli and internationals that are being held in Gaza, in exchange for the release of all of the Palestinian prisoners also to be released. And I've given numbers before in specificity, but prior to October 7th, the numbers of Palestinians that have been held in Israeli prisons, that number has more than doubled, if not tripled or more, since October 7th. And so All for All is a call for the exchange of all hostages and the release of all prisoners. That has increased momentum in Israel. A few other updates. The International Court of Justice confirmed it will hold public hearings at The Hague on January 11th and 12th regarding South Africa's case against Israel, saying that they have not prevented genocide. I've given specifics about that on other updates. The Rafah municipality in South Gaza has reported that a number of displaced people who arrived in the southernmost part of Gaza is now about 1 million since the beginning of the war. The usual population there used to be about 300,000. Fire exchanges have continued at Israel's north border with Lebanon, Lebanon's south border, Israel's north border. The Israeli army says it will continue to attack on Lebanese territories as it sees fit. And Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leader, has said his heavily armed forces would fight to the finish if Israel chooses to extend their war to Lebanon. So we are paying close attention to that in light of that recent Beirut bombing. We know the latest Israeli strikes killed 4 men who were reportedly Hezbollah members in the southern Lebanese town of Naqoura. 14 members of one family, the Salah family, were killed overnight last night in the Israeli bombardment of Gaza. And Israeli strikes continue in the vicinity of Al Amal Hospital, which is the headquarters of the Palestinian Red Crescent Society in Gaza. International news also reported that the US has confirmed Israel's account that Hamas did operate and hold hostages in facilities and tunnels connected to Al-Shifa Hospital. And Israeli aerial and ground attacks have recently targeted the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis. Many of the people who were displaced from North Gaza and Central Gaza have taken refuge in Khan Yunis. We also know that the Barej refugee camp in Central Gaza has been targeted by aerial and ground attacks. A few other updates in terms of diplomacy and aid delivery. Senior U.S. Education Department Policy Advisor Tariq Habash resigned in protest of President Joe Biden's approach to the war and said that the president must call for a permanent ceasefire. Humanitarian agencies have been unable to deliver aid in North Gaza for the last 3 days, according to OSHA. OSHA added that active armed conflict coupled with access delays is the reason. And the Dutch Foreign Ministry called recent remarks by the Israeli ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir regarding the Palestinian resettlement I was talking about earlier from Gaza irresponsible. We also know the Netherlands, Germany, France, and Saudi Arabia condemned Israel's call for the forced migration of Palestinians. And finally, the U.S. Secretary of State, Secretary Blinken, is set to arrive in the Middle East soon. This will be his 4th trip since the outbreak of the war related to Hamas and Israel. We also know he will go specifically to Israel in addition to other Middle East locations. I wanted to close with a quote from Bonhoeffer, and I hope that this encourages us. It encourages us in terms of an exhortation. Bonhoeffer said this: "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak, and not to act is to act." So might God give us courage to speak, to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves, as the scriptures say. Might we have courage and wisdom and discernment? Might we continue to call for a comprehensive ceasefire, a release of hostages, immediate and adequate humanitarian assistance? I say that over and over again like a mantra, but I think what's most important for us to know is that every day more and more people continue to die. And the work that we are doing of educating and of calling for an end to war and of calling for an end to violence, it is not only in the best interest of the people of Gaza, it is not only in the best interest of the people of Israel, it's in the best interest of our own complicity. It's in the best interest of humanity. And so might we continue to call for peace and an end to war.